Randy, I know you work a lot with helping companies to improve their retention strategies. How does that work?
So, first of all, make it easy to do business with you. I mean, that's the very first thing. And anybody who is customer facing should always be empowered to be able to make decisions in one interaction or less, like from a customer service perspective. Having a formal retention strategy at some point. I mean, if you're a startup, everything is obviously acquisition. At some point, you need to switch time, energy, and budget to a retention program because it results in 5 to 25x less expensive ROI than a new acquisition, right? So, marketing people know this, but not everybody in the organization knows this. I'm also a huge proponent that customer service report into marketing. Customer service is not an operations function. It is a marketing support function. And, I just read the other day that startup SaaS companies have experienced over the last few years a 50% increase in competition when the barriers to entry are so low to create an app or create another platform. And people don't feel tethered to you. It's so easy to switch. You've got to be sure that your retention strategies are absolutely key because that's how you grow, right? There has to be a separate budget. There has to be a separate strategy. And when someone is in awareness, consideration, decision stage, that's the buyer's journey. But the customer journey begins once they buy from you. And I think having that mental switch sometimes is hard for companies to make that bridge. How that deserves all, special communication flow, email. How do you talk to your customers? How do you, how do you make them stick to you, in other words?
Well, actually, that's a big thing that we do with the revenue growth team. It's one of the objectives, right? Is the strategy, right? We all understand net new. It's easy, right? Easy. Right. Well, right. Not that easy, but you know what I'm saying. But when you have a plan for retention, that's pretty critical. Net new, retention. They're both important. Retention. Again, is you already have those customers, and if you have products that keep them as a client or upsell, that's one thing. But it is a balance, and you need to optimize the balance, and that's what we do.
Right. Well, and that also, flows into trust as well. That's where you get your testimonials. Those people are the ones that love you. They're the ones that are going to do Google reviews. They're going to be your referral pipeline. So it's really important to treat your existing customers with the respect that those new relationships deserve.
Well, this is one of the failures that a lot of these startups have, is they start up, they have the sales team, and the sales team is also responsible for renewals and upsells and customer success. And they're not compensated in the same way. So they're paid on that net new business, but then when it comes to resell and upsell, they're not. And this is the interesting thing, is that it's that maturity level of when do we get that fully baked customer success team implemented? Because when you put that on the sales rep, that's not going to work unless you're comping the sales rep to renew and upsell that client, and then that's going to cannibalize your net new business. So
I notice a lot of startups and newer companies are kind of moving to where they have a chief revenue officer and kind of sales, marketing, and customer success reports up to that executive level position. I think that so many of the new businesses that are starting up involve some type of software technology solution, and I think a big part of that is helping your customers be successful with it, right? Because nobody knows how to use it better than you. So if you can help them be successful. And I know I was fortunate enough to be involved in a startup tech company, and this was it was a SaaS company back in 2099. And one of the first things we did was take our existing customers and kind of form committees that would provide input. And it was amazing how much that really acted to create, increased satisfaction, create stickiness, and they felt like they had input into the product. And so I think that's kind of one example, but I think increasingly the ability to upsell or cross sell other services is just as important as well.
Right. And having an account manager or somebody that you know their name, they know your name, you can call them if you need help. I think that's really important too, because as companies scale, they need hand holding. And so if you have a big enough account, then you should have an account manager within the company that is beyond sales, right? It is handling the existing relationship. How you attribute then, an upsell, I don't know, Mark. But
those are, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just to quick note is the question you need to ask is when you sold your product, who does that client come back to ask questions?
Right.
If they're always coming back to that initial rep, you don't have an effective customer success team.
Right.
And if they're not, then great, it's working. Because every time they come back to that initial rep, you're losing that new business.
Yeah. Well, the thing you have to step back and think about when you talk about that is, what's your overall customer engagement strategy? And what I mean by that is, let's be honest, the existing revenue, the existing business is just as important as the new business that's there. So how do you accentuate and continue to grow that, continue to build on, continue to add that? So what we're finding now is penetration strategy is incredibly critical. You need an account manager, an account director who can lead it, not from actually doing all of the doing, but more the quarterback within your organization. And what I mean by that is, how do they work with customer service to make sure customer service is penetrated in, customer success is penetrated in, the marketing team is part of it, so on down the line. I think one thing that I see from a really truly good salesperson is understanding how to use the assets and the people within their company to extend and build a closer relationship with their client, because that's the difference between successful, having that sticky relationship, which is the long-term retention, and is going to grow the business and optimize that revenue growth as well. So you guys, I think, are all dead on what you're saying. It's how do you develop that penetration strategy? And at the end of the day, the really good ones are the ones that understand, I don't own it. Everybody on the team owns it. It's how do I be the quarterback to help everyone, have a deeper ownership as to what they're doing and what's going on.